And welcome to the One More Thing podcast. Today I'm joined with Dr. Larry Baucom.
Good morning.
So the rumor is that for Christmas, you're going to buy all the staff clockies.
That is a rumor.
Especially with that creative team showing up late for staff meeting nowadays. You know,
They were 1 minute late. They'd hit the snooze once too many.
That's right. That's right. We got to get them some clockies, man. I thought it was a great kickoff to the sermon series, Notifications On. And I got to be honest, like I looked at the sermon notes that you give out to the creative team and us, and I said, where is he going with this?
Right.
And you kind of kept it sort of not secretive, but I was really interested as to how you were going to sort of set it up. And it was a brilliant sermon and lots of conversations, not only in the Grand Hall, but even online, that people were commenting about this was something that they needed. So what was the heart of Notifications On?
I think that we live so much in the dark, or sometimes we're so bombarded by so many things that for me, I turn all notifications off on my phone. Mm-hmm. But I want to make sure that I'm not isolated from God whispering to me, or seeing something in my life that's not healthy, and I just ignore it. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to be very open-minded, keep our eyes open, and sometimes some of the heartaches of life are the greatest notifiers that things are not doing well. And when your family is dysfunctional and they're not doing well, or your marriage is on the rocks, or your health is not good. And we're going to talk about those things: relationships, health, money. I think those are part of the notifications that have been a part of this series. Yeah,
I thought it was great. Point one you made was, particularly like striking, that the snooze button is really a procrastination tool.
Right.
But procrastination, man, it could take many forms.
Right.
And you touched on a lot of them, and I had to be honest, like there was a sense of my own sort of personal subjective conviction about some of the things that I hit snooze on. And you were really firm, and you reiterated this quite a bit. It's easier for us to say, hey, you need a change.
Right.
It's harder for us to accept the fact that when people see something in us that may be misaligned to the things of God. Why is that? Why is it hard for us to take that sort of constructive criticism?
I think that's a very good question. It leads me to think about one of our core principles, principle number 2, trying to help people take personal responsibility for their lives. We all can improve on how we treat people and how we are in life. And sometimes when I blame everyone for my circumstance, I'm not taking responsibility, therefore I don't have to fix me. Mm-hmm. But when procrastination tool it's a blame button. Yep. I'm blaming the clock, I'm blaming someone else, and then when I hit the snooze a couple times, everybody's in my way, I can't believe traffic, you didn't plan well. Mm-hmm. And really it's our own fault, and unless we take responsibility, then we keep hitting the snooze button. We keep procrastinating. Could I be a better father? Could I be a better husband? Could I be a better, kinder neighbor, or just to people in general? And the answer is yes. Yeah. And here's the other thing. Just about the time you go, I did so well this week, guess what? Next week's coming. Yeah. And you can screw up next week so easily. So it's this continual evaluation of my life, and I think that's where growth is. Mm-hmm. It's the everyday, it's the baby steps that we take in trying to be a better human being. Yeah. And sometimes we miss those, or we procrastinate those. Yeah. But hitting the snooze button, just a visual metaphor for trying to grow in life.
I love to listen to motivational speakers when I'm on the treadmill at the gym. And yesterday, Esther was coming back from Dallas, and so I had some alone time, and I went to the gym to just do some cardio before she got in. And Zig Ziglar said something, and when he said it, it reminded me of something in your sermon, because you obviously gave more of a theological parameter to it. He said a lot of times procrastination in our life to change, to become the best version of ourselves, to chase that better version of ourselves, is driven by like this fear.
Right.
And he said something that fear was false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And when you talked about yesterday, like hitting the snooze in particular aspects of our marriage, or relationships, when people see something in us, what element does fear play into that? Because the Bible talks a lot about don't fear, angels appearing and whatnot. What role is fear? Because I think that's kind of sort of the things you were saying. There's a fear to change, a fear to step into my best self that God has for me. Like, what advice would you give to people listening who they feel like when someone approaches them and says, man, this should change in your life, they want to do it, they feel like I should, but I don't believe in myself enough, or that whole false evidence appearing real?
Yeah, I think one of the things that many people fear, not everyone, but many people fear of people of me being exposed.
Yeah.
So, for example, with my kids, if my kids do something, now my kids are grown, but when they're kids, someone complains about my children, well, I'm afraid they're going to see who the real kids are, or maybe there's some dysfunction within the family. I want to keep that hidden. Or maybe I've been too harsh with my kids, or maybe I didn't deal with them at all. I've been too lackadaisical, so they just get away with everything, and there's no constraint. And I fear being exposed, that I'm not the perfect parent. I'm not the perfect person. No one, and I say this boldly, no one loves criticism. People say, no. I think that's a naivete.
Yeah.
We all would prefer,
yeah,
and I'm sure there's some crazy person somewhere, but most of us, I think, would prefer affirmation. Hey, you're doing a great job. I want you to know this is really good. And then, but there's always but.
Yeah.
If you'd done this, it might have been a little better.
Right.
And sometimes we all fall, and I'm guilty of that as well.
Yeah.
But how do we keep things healthy and not toxic? And fear is one of those things. I don't act because I'm afraid. I don't act because I'm afraid I will offend my kids, or maybe I'll damage my kids. I don't act to correct them, or maybe I don't act and because to correct them would admit that they need correcting, and maybe I just think they don't need correcting. And the same thing is true with children and also marriages. I've been married for 46 years. Trust me when I tell you that marriage is not always blissful. There are days that we have to work at it. There are days that apologies have to be made.
Yes.
Say, I'm sorry, that was too harsh, or I didn't mean that way it came across. But Becky's used to saying that, so it's not really. But she'll be watching this and shaking her head, maybe rolling her eyes like, there he goes again.
There he goes.
Yeah.
So you closed out the sermon. My last question is one that you touched on. You gave the story about your life in college.
Right.
And just how busy you were. And while the sermon series is notifications on, and you did a masterful job of telling us like what sort of notifications we need to sort of become aware of, awaken ourselves to. What about the person out there who it's all notifications on at all time, like you doing this job, then going to school, then doing this job, and falling asleep on a date with Becky, and falling asleep at a red light? Like, what do you say to someone who has too many notifications in their life?
Well, I think it can be toxic. I mean, I don't know if the notifications is the right word, but people who run, they are seeking. I don't know if I'm seeking affirmation, but they're working so hard because they know they can. Back in those days, work ethic is what I grew up with, and you just do it. You don't think about it, you do it. And to go that long with only having 3 hours of sleep or so for 5 days a week for months is not healthy. And the notification was not everything I was doing. The notification was, you're slipping here. Your grades are not good. A professor calls me in the office and says, hey, I want to let you know you're on the front row of my accounting class and you're sleeping. That's a notification.
That's right.
Sorry. I'll jump many years later in the PhD program to where 1 year I read 200 pages a day. And all of a sudden I began to lose short-term memory, and my eyesight went from a minus 150 to a minus 250 in less than 12 months.
Jeez.
And my doctor said, you're going to go blind. And the notifications are, you cannot sustain this pace.
Yep.
But sometimes for a short period, we do.
Yep.
And we look back and go, I don't know that's my best self.
Yep.
But if I had this to do over again, would I do it the same way? I don't think so.
That's really good. Yeah.
In the moment, but the notification is physical damage, eyesight damage. I was trying to schedule a friend of mine to come and speak at my church, and I saw him at a funeral where a colleague of ours had passed away, and I saw him, and his name was Thurl. I said, I'm going to schedule him right now to come and speak at my church. And I walked up to Thurl. He said, now we're on for March, right? And I just had a deer in the headlights look. I have zero recollection. And I pull out back then a little calendar book in my coat pocket, because I was wearing a coat and tie and all that stuff. I pull it out, flip through in March, and there
and
was
you had already booked.
I'd written it in my handwriting.
Wow.
And there was an alarm that went off. A notification was, dude, this is not healthy. Mm-hmm. You need to slow down. And I did. And I basically said, I will not continue on this pace. And once I finished that season, I'd already finished it, I read less and I reflected more.
Yeah.
And it took some time for personal recovery. And that's important. But it's, now, who do I blame? Well, I can blame anybody, but really, me.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for scheduling those classes. I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for things I do. Was it healthy? No, it was not healthy. Mm-hmm. And I look back and go, I can do better.
Yep.
And I really want to do better. I want to be a better husband and a better pastor and a better friend. And I can't if my memory is overloaded or I'm slipping.
Yeah.
So that's a health issue.
That's
and
right.
a mind issue. So have I had my notifications on in life with God? I think so. The question is, why didn't I fix it sooner? Mm-hmm. That's my question to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it.
I think that's the great thing is we can, as we progress and move forward, like we can make those corrections. And I think that's what the hope of that message Sunday was. What was so brilliant about it was, now you know, this sermon is a notification, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? And that was really, really awesome.
But and I used the analogy at the end about there was always three guys. Two guys are going to come down to my room and knock on the door if I overslept.
Yeah.
And that was very healthy. And we didn't have to do this alone. And even in the midst of this toxic lifestyle that I had embraced, I was not alone. Mm-hmm. I had friends, and I thank God for those friends who were always there for me. And it reminds me that God is even more always there for me. I just need to keep my eyes open to see Him.
Awesome. So this Sunday, what's on tap?
Oh, we're jumping right back in again.
All right.
So it'll be fun. Notifications on. I don't want to give away anything. You have to come and check it out.
Yeah.
So, but we will have fun together. A little humor.
Yeah.
It's always fun to.
This is one of those practical type prescription type sermon series. It looks like that people can. It's not heavy. It's not grounded in this deep theology and abstraction. Here's how to.
It's about better mental health, better spiritual health.
Yes.
And without getting boggled down with other things. I think that's well said.
Can't wait for it.
Me
Thanks
too.
a lot.
Thank you.